The idea of parables. Jesus begins then to speak of the kingdom of heaven in parables. The first is that of the sower. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places, where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up, and choked them. But others fell into good ground, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 3-9. This parable, which contains a complete and exact description of the preaching of esotericism and all its possible results, bears a direct relation to the teaching of Christ himself and is almost the central of all parables. The meaning is clear as it refers to esoteric ideas, to ideas of the kingdom of heaven that are received and understood only by very few people, and for the immense majority disappear without trace. This parable again ends with the words, Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. In the subsequent conversation with the disciples, Jesus points out the difference between the disciples and other people. And the disciples came, and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 10 and 11. This is the beginning of the explanation referring to a school and school methods. As will be illustrated later, much of what is said in the Gospel was intended only for the disciples and has meaning only in a mystery school and then only with regard with other school methods and requirements. In this connection, Jesus speaks of a psychological and perhaps even cosmic law that seems incomprehensible without explanation. However, the explanations are not set out in the Gospel, though they were of course given to the disciples. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance, but whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that which he hath. Matthew, chapter 13, verse 12. Then Jesus returns to parables, i.e. to the idea of parables. Therefore speak I to them in parables. Because they, seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Matthew, chapter 13, verse 13. And the same in St. Luke. Unto you it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God. But to others in parables, that seeing they might not see and hearing they might not understand. Luke, chapter 8, verse 10. He hath blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, that they should not see with their eyes nor understand with their heart and be converted, and I should heal them. Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 10 and John, chapter 12, verse 40. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear and have not heard them. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 15-17. Teaching by parables was most characteristic of Christ. Renaud finds that in the literature of Judaism there was nothing that could serve as a model for this form. Renaud writes, It is particularly in the parable that the Master excelled. Nothing in Judaism had given him a model for this delightful form. It is he who created it. The Life of Jesus, written by Ernest Renaud, edited Nelson, see page 116. Later, with the astounding inconsequence that characterizes all positivist thought of the 19th century and particularly Renaud himself, he adds, It is true that one finds in Buddhist text, parables of exactly the same tone and the same composition as the Gospel parables. However, it is difficult to admit that a Buddhist's influence was exerted in this. The Life of Jesus, written by Ernest Renaud, edited Nelson, see page 116. In fact, the Buddhist influence in parables is beyond doubt. Parables, more than anything, show that Christ was acquainted with Eastern teachings and in particular with Buddhism. Ernest Renaud generally tries to represent Christ as a very naive man, who felt much but thought little and knew little. Renan was but the expression of his own times and the views of his epoch. The characteristic quality of European thought is that we can only think in extremes. Either Christ is God, or Christ is a naive man. For the same reason we fail to notice the subtleties of psychological distinctions that Christ introduces into his parables and explanations of them. The explanations of parables that Christ gives to his disciples are no less interesting than the parables themselves. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When any one heareth the word of the kingdom, and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while, for when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that received seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 18 to 22. Next comes the parable of the tares. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up, and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. The parable of the sower and that of the tares have many different meanings. First, it is the contrasting of pure esoteric ideas with ideas mixed with tares sown by the devil. In this case the grains or seeds denote ideas. In one place Christ says, The sower soweth the word. Mark, chapter 4, verse 14. In other cases a seed or grain symbolizes man. The grain played a very important part in ancient mysteries. The idea of the burial of grain in the earth, its death and resurrection in the form of a green sprout symbolized the whole idea of the mysteries. There are many naive pseudoscientific attempts to explain the mysteries as an agricultural myth, i.e. as a survival of ancient pagan rites from primitive agricultural peoples. In reality the idea was infinitely wider and deeper, conceived not by a primitive people but by one of the long-vanished prehistoric civilizations. The grain allegory represented man. In the Eleusinian mysteries every candidate for initiation carried in a particular procession, a grain of wheat within a tiny earthenware bowl. The secret that was revealed at initiation was contained in the idea that man could die simply as a grain, or could rise again into some other life. This was the principal idea of the mysteries, that was expressed by many different symbols. Christ often makes use of the same idea and there is enormous power in it. The idea contains a biological explanation of a whole series of intricate and complex problems of life. Nature is extraordinarily generous, almost lavish in her method. She creates an enormous quantity of seeds in order that a few of them only might germinate and carry life further. If man is looked upon as a grain, the cruel law continually emphasized in gospel teaching becomes comprehensible, that the great majority of mankind are but chaff that shall be burned. Christ often returns to this idea, and in his explanations the idea loses its cruelty because it becomes clear that in the salvation or perdition of individual men, there is nothing preordained or inevitable, that both the one and the other depend upon man himself, on his own attitude towards himself, towards other men and towards the idea of the kingdom of heaven. In succeeding parables Christ again emphasizes the idea and meaning of esotericism in relation to life, the small external magnitude of esotericism in comparison with life, and yet the immense possibility and the immense significance of esotericism, in particular the quality of esoteric ideas. that they approach him who understands and appreciates their meaning. These short parables about the kingdom of heaven, each of which includes the whole content of the gospel teaching, are remarkable even simply as works of art. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. Which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. Another parable spake he unto them, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hid in a field, that which when a man hath found, he hideth and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath and buyeth that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man, seeking goodly pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had, and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net, that was cast into the sea, and gathered of every kind. Which when it was full they drew to shore, and sat down, and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 31 to 34 and 44 to 48. In the last parable there is again the idea of separation and the idea of selection. Further on, Christ says, so shall it be at the end of the world, the angels shall come forth, and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire, there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus saith unto them, have ye understood all these things? They say unto him, Yea, Lord. Matthew, chapter 13, verses 49 to 51. But apparently the disciples did not quite understand, or understood something wrongly, confused the new interpretation with the old, because Christ said to them next. Then said he unto them, therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasure things new and old. Matthew, chapter 13, verse 52. This refers to an intellectual study of the gospel teaching, to attempts at rationalistic interpretations in which elements of esoteric ideas are mixed up with barren scholastic dialectic, the new with the old. The succeeding parables and teachings contain a development of this same idea of selection and test. Only a man who creates within himself the kingdom of heaven with all of its rules and laws can enter Christ's kingdom of heaven. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he had not to pay, his lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife, and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down, and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the lord of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out, and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, and he laid hands on him, and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet, and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison, till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their lord all that was done. Then his lord, after that he had called him and said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desiredst me. Shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his lord was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. Matthew, chapter 18, verses 23 to 34. Next comes the story of the rich young man, of the difficulties, of the obstacles made by life, of the attractions of life, of the power of life over people, particularly those who have great possessions. The young man saith unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up, what lack I yet? Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell all that thou hast and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. Matthew, chapter 19, verses 20 to 24. Rich, again, has of course many different meanings. First of all, it contains the idea of attachment, sometimes the idea of great knowledge, a great mind, a great talent, position, fame. All these are riches that close the kingdom of heaven. Attachment to church religion is also riches. Only if the rich man becomes poor in spirit does the kingdom of heaven open to him. The passages that follow in St. Matthew's Gospel deal with different attitudes to esoteric ideas. Some people grasp at them but quickly abandon them. Others resist at first but afterwards take to them seriously. These are two types of people. One type is the man who said that he would go and did not go, and the other is the man who said that he would not go and went. Then sometimes people either unsuccessful in life, or occupying a very low position in life, people even criminal from the point of view of ordinary mortals, the publicans and harlots prove to be better from the point of view of the kingdom of heaven than the righteous men confident of themselves. But what think ye? A certain man had 2 sons, and he came to the first, and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not, but afterward he repented, and went. And he came to the second, and said likewise. And he answered and said, I go, sir, and went not. Whether of them twain did the will of his father? They say unto him, the first. Jesus saith unto them, Verily I say unto you, that the publicans and the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came unto you in the way of righteousness, and ye believed him not, but the publicans and the harlots believed him, and ye, when ye had seen it, repented not afterward, that ye might believe him. Matthew, chapter 21, verses 28 to 32. Then follow the parable of the husbandman and the explanation, in which one feels great ideas of a cosmic order that possibly refer to the succession of cycles, that is to the replacement of an unsuccessful experiment, with a new experiment. This parable may refer to the whole of humanity, and to the relation between the inner circle and the outer circle of humanity. Hear another parable. There was a certain householder, which planted a vineyard, and hedged it round about, and digged a winepress in it, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen, and went into a far country. And when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husbandmen, that they might receive the fruits of it. And the husbandman took his servants, and beat one, and killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. But last of all he sent unto them his son, saying, They will reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, This is the heir, come let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And they caught him, and cast him out of the vineyard, and slew him. When the Lord therefore of the vineyard cometh, what will he do unto those husbandmen? They say unto him, He will miserably destroy those wicked men, and will let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits in their seasons. Matthew, chapter 21, verses 33 to 41. Next comes the same idea of selection and that of the different attitudes of people to the idea of the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready, come unto the marriage. But they made light of it, and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants, and entreated them spitefully, and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. Matthew, chapter 22, verses 2 to 7. Then follows the parable of the people who are ready and not ready for esotericism. Then saith he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways, and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he saith unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew, chapter 22, verses 8 to 14. Next there is one of the best-known parables, that of the talents. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man travelling into a far country, who called his own servants, and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his lord's money. After a long time the lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 5 talents, behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant, thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 2 talents, behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant, thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth, lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew, chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. This parable contains all the ideas connected with the parable of the sower, and besides this the idea of the change of cycles and of the destruction of bad material.